Hey guys, we're getting ready to finish up Mark chapter 10. As we've gone through this chapter, so many different types of people have come out to Jesus. And the ones that you would think Jesus would welcome, they're the ones that end up kind of getting turned away and not following Jesus. But then the ones that you would think Jesus would turn away, they're the ones that Jesus welcomes with open arms and extends mercy to. And I think you'll see that in our study this morning. So we're in Mark 10 and verse 46. It says, "Now they came to Jericho. As he went out of Jericho with his disciples and a great multitude, blind Bartimaeus and the son of Timaeus sat by the road begging. And when he heard it was Jesus of Nazareth, he began to cry out and say, 'Jesus, son of David, have mercy upon me.' Then many warned him to be quiet, but he cried out all the more, 'Son of David, have mercy upon me.' And so Jesus stood still and commanded him to be called. And then they called the blind man, saying to him, 'Be of good cheer, rise, he is calling you.' And throwing aside his garment, he rose and he came to Jesus. And so Jesus answered and said to him, 'What do you want me to do for you?' And the blind man said to him, 'Rabboni, that I may receive my sight.' And then Jesus said to him, 'Go your way, your faith has made you well.' And immediately he received his sight and he followed Jesus on the road." There in Jericho, there's this multitude and there's this man by the name of Bartimaeus, which just means son of Timaeus. And he's sitting by the road and he's begging. And notice all the details that Mark gives here. This is the first time Mark gives a name to somebody who Jesus heals. And so what this means is that if you were alive during the time that Mark wrote this gospel, you could go to Jericho and you could start asking around, "Do you know a man by the name of Bartimaeus?" And people would be like, "Oh yeah, he was that blind beggar, but now he's not blind anymore because Jesus healed him." This was a verifiable event. This was something that actually happened. And something to keep in mind back then, if you were blind, there wasn't any jobs for you to really do. If your family didn't have money, then what they would do, they would lead you alongside the road and you would just sit there and say, "Have mercy upon me." Just hoping that somebody would feel compassion towards you and give you some kind of money. And that's how you lived. That's how you ate. And so on this day, he hears somehow about Jesus and he's crying out, "Jesus, son of David, have mercy upon me." Just kind of over and over again. You know, I thought his father's name was Joseph. If you remember in 2 Samuel 7, there was a promise given to David that one would come through his line, come through his seed, and he would establish a throne. He would sit on a throne, establish an eternal kingdom. What Bartimaeus is saying is that you are the Messiah. But you could only imagine how it must have made the crowd feel to hear this man crying out over and over again to the point to where they're like, "Be quiet, don't bother Jesus," kind of like the disciples with the children. But that only made him louder and to do it more. "Son of David, have mercy upon me." And, think about it. If you were blind, would a crowd stop you from trying to get to a man who could give the sight back to the blind? It wouldn't stop me. And so Jesus stops and he says, "Have him come to me." And probably the same people that were saying, be quiet, are now the same people saying, "Be of good cheer, he's called you to him." So what did he do? Well, he did what the rich young ruler was unwilling to do. He threw aside his cloak, probably the only thing that he had. All of his possessions he left aside, and he went to Jesus. And Jesus asked him the question, "What do you want me to do for you?" Sound familiar? You remember James and John, sons of thunder, they'd come to him. "What do you want me to do for you?" They went to the right and the left hand, nothing much. He wanted power and position. What does this man answer? He says, "Rabboni, that I may regain my sight." Something very different. This man is not looking for power. He's not looking for position. He's just looking for his sight. There are those who Jesus chose to have mercy upon and to have follow him. And it typically wasn't the rich and the powerful. It was the poor and the lowly and the humble. And that really ought to change our perspective as to what we see as being important. And so here you have this poor, blind beggar who's begging Jesus for mercy, and Jesus shows it upon him. And because of what Jesus did for him, this man dedicates his life to him. He follows him. That ought to be a great pattern for us as well.